What's going on, people? My name is Sean Arnold and welcome to another deck showcase video of my deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist. Today's deck which I'm showing off is a Gravekeepers deck, one of my favourite archetypes of all time in Yu-Gi-Oh! I know I've been saying that a lot about quite a few decks, but Gravekeepers holds a special place in my heart because they've always been like a tier 2 deck. They've never really gotten too much weaker over the years, but they've never really gotten too much stronger over the years. They're very, very consistent, and they've got some really great new cards which has helped them kind of keep up with the meta a bit more. Although I don't think Gravekeepers will ever be a top tier deck, but they can run with the best of them. So let me show you what Gravekeepers can do. First of all, the main Gravekeepers card is Necro Valley. All Gravekeepers monsters gain 500 attack and defense. Cards in other player's graveyard cannot be banished. Negate any card effect that would move a card in the graveyard other than itself to a different place. So cards like Call of the Haunted, anything that tries to recover from the graveyard is stopped by Necro Valley, and you can't remove any cards in the graveyard from play. So Necro Valley is considered quite often as an anti-meta card, and Gravekeepers are mostly played as a control deck. They don't really have many swarming options, they don't really have a lot of strong monsters, so they're mostly focusing on controlling your opponent, slowing them down, and trying to stun them kind of briefly so that you can deal with their threats one at a time. So we have several cards here. Today I'm going to go through it in order of monster spells and traps. Normally I will go through it in terms of what what the core is, what the set of cards do, but this time I'm just going to go through it with monster spells and traps. First of all, I have 3 copies of Gravekeepers Recruiter. Gravekeepers Recruiter is one of the best Gravekeeper cards, probably second best to Gravekeeper Spy. And if you're familiar with Witch of the Black Forest, he is basically Witch of the Black Forest just for Gravekeepers. When he's sent to the graveyard, you can add any Gravekeeper with 1500 or less defense from your deck to your hand. And if I just kind of search all the Gravekeepers, 1 second. Most of them kind of fit that criteria. Gravekeeper's card doesn't work with it, but I'm not using him anyway. Yeah, I think all of them, except for Spy. Spy doesn't work with it, but Spy is still really good on her own. And Visionary. Most of the Gravekeeper monsters can be searched out of their deck by Gravekeepers Recruiter, making them a really solid card for turning your deck into a toolbox for getting out the card you need the most. Now, I'm not using all of these Gravekeepers monsters, even though there's quite a few of them. I'm just trying to work on making the deck as consistent as possible, so that I don't really run into any inconsistencies. So the next monster we have is Gravekeeper's Assailant. Gravekeeper's Assailant receives a lot of mixed views. Some people really don't like her because her effect is reliant on Necro Valley, but I've always found her to be pretty great, no matter what meta I've been in. Her effect is simple. When she attacks, and while Necro Valley is on the field, you can change the battle position of one monster. It's really great for destroying a monster which has really weak defense but really high attack, or even destroying or turning a monster into attack position from defense position to set them up for another monster. When you decide what monster you're going to choose, you don't even have to choose the one you're attacking. You can choose any monster your opponent controls and change its battle position. It's a lot like Enemy Controller, if you're aware of that quick play spell card, where you can just target one monster and change its battle position. However, because the effect is reliant on Necro Valley, I'm only using the 1 copy of it, just because I don't ever want to really have it out without it being able to use its effect. Gravekeeper's Commandant. Gravekeeper's Commandant effect is simple. You can discard him from your hand to the graveyard to get Necro Valley. And this deck runs are all around Necro Valley, and your opponents are going to be targeting Necro Valley when they attack you or try to stop your deck from working. So having 2 copies of Commandant is really useful because it gets you Necro Valley quicker, and he can get you a 2nd copy quicker. If you don't want to discard him, say you have 2 copies of Necro Valley in your hand, having him on the field with Necro Valley makes him 2100 attack, which is pretty strong in my opinion. Then I have 1 copy of Gravekeeper's Descendant. Gravekeeper's Descendant's effect is really good. You contribute 1 face-up Gravekeeper's monster to target 1 card on the field and destroy it, while 1 on your opponent's field and destroy it. That could be spell, trap, or monster card, and it combines really well with Gravekeeper Spy if she's used her effect already, or Gravekeeper's Recruiter, because when you tribute him, he will be sent to the graveyard and he will be able to trigger his own effect, making Descendant's effect effectively free. Again, he does reduce your field presence. You can't tribute himself. He does take a little bit of time to set up, so I'm not using many copies of him because there are other cards like MST, Bottom Trap Hole, which can get rid of my monster's card, my opponent's card. So only one copy of him for the time being. Then I have few copies of Gravekeeper Spy, the best Gravekeeper's card. 2000 defense makes her really solid. You can put her face down on the field, and when she's flipped up, she can special summon one Gravekeeper's monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck. Kind of the opposite of Gravekeeper's Recruiter. So anything with 1500 or less attack can be summoned by her. Most of the time I will normally summon a Descendant if I want to destroy a monster or a spell card in the next turn. Gravekeeper's Assailant if I'm going to start attacking on the next turn. Shaman, who I'll talk about later, or Gravekeeper's Recruiter if I want to play it safe. If I'm worried that my opponent might destroy my monsters that turn, I might just put on Recruiter so that he can get his effect off. Or it can be really useful to just summon another Gravekeeper Spy and have two monsters with 2000 defense on the field, and then you can use them to be XC summoned into something bigger. A very versatile card, that one. Gravekeeper Shaman. I'm trying this out due to a recommendation someone made. Gravekeeper Shaman is mostly there for her anti-meta effect, and she doesn't. How do I explain her? She's a level 6 monster, so it means she needs to be tribute summoned, but hopefully I will never ever have to tribute summon her. Normally I will try to summon her early with Gravekeeper Spy. What her effect does is she gains 200 defense for each Gravekeeper monster in your graveyard, but that's not important because so she normally comes out as 2000 attack with 2000 defense, and then she gets a little bit extra defense. That's not what's really important with her. What is important is that she negates all monster effects that activate in the graveyard except Gravekeeper's monsters. So she kind of boosts Necro Valley up a bit. So if a monster activates in the graveyard, she will stop it. Whilst Necro Valley stops monsters or any effect which moves a card from the graveyard. So let me think of an effect. If, say, Mystic Tomato, Warrior Lady of the Wasteland, any effect which says when this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can do this, she will stop that. And this is really useful for those really top tier decks which have effects which say allow themselves to be banished or removed from the graveyard to have some kind of bonus. I think Cyber Dragons even have a card which kind of does that as well. So Gravekeeper just applies a bit more pressure on the opponent by boosting Necro Valley's pressure as well. And that's it for monsters. Not using many monsters in the Gravekeeper's deck because some of their best cards allow them to reuse their monsters quite a bit. And the main one for that is Gravekeeper's Stele, or Stele. Gravekeeper's Stele lets you target 2 Gravekeeper's monsters in your graveyard and add them to your hand. They can't be stopped by Necro Valley. Really great recycling effects, really great for reusing Recruiter or Assailant and Descendant if you want to use their effect again rather than running extra copies. I'm only using 2 copies of this card because sometimes you don't want to draw it too early. You want to draw it by about, let's say, your 3rd or your 4th turn when you have 2 monsters in the graveyard. Otherwise you can't use it then and it will just sit in your hand. So I'm using 2 copies because it's really great mid-game. However, just be careful of running too many copies because it can become a dead draw. Mars Chains 2. I talked about this a lot in my anti-meta video, but recently while I was trying to make an elemental hero deck off screen, I started using Mars Chains 2 for a bit, just testing it out, and I think it's a really good quick play spell card. It's really versatile and it doesn't have to only be used in hero decks. It allows you to kind of create a small toolbox of monsters. So once your monster has its effects used up, or let's say Descendants on the field, I can tribute it with Mars Chains 2 and bring out, say, Darklaw or Anki. Darklaw is really great because it also puts more pressure on an opponent's graveyard, and it just gives these Gravekeepers a little bit of an extra boost. I might even put Mars Chains 2 in my Amazon deck because they could do with an effect like this, which brings out bigger monsters. Really impressed by this card. I didn't want to use it at first because I'm very anti-meta. I don't like playing what a lot of people are playing, but because it's so splashable, it really helps a lot of these lower tier decks that I like running. So enjoying using Master Chains too. What else to talk about in terms of a draw engine? Gravekeepers don't have much in terms of drawing. They have a lot of searching cards with Recruiter and Spy, but to help that I also have Pot of Duality and Allure of Darkness, and of course Commandant to get that Necro Valley. Royal Tribute. Royal Tribute is a great card. Everyone that wants to play Gravekeepers should be aware of this card. If you control Necro Valley, both players discard any monsters in their hand. Now that can be a downside for you, but with Gravekeeper Stel or Stelly, whatever we call it, I'm gonna find out how to pronounce it. It's easy to get back those monsters back, but ideally you want to get this like in your first or second turn, and it will cripple a lot of decks like Necros that like to use just loads of monster cards and it empties their deck. Excuse me 1 second. Okay. Royal Tribute is really great. It's limited to 1 card, so I can't run more copies of it, but it's useful, just not useful in the late game really too much. The other card I want to highlight is Imperial Tombs of Necro Valley. I actually had this used against me and I was really surprised to see this. And basically this is a solemn warning for Gravekeepers only. It's a little slow in that you have to have a Gravekeepers monster and Necro Valley on the field in order to activate it. But if you do, you can negate any spell card, any trap card, or any monster effect and destroy it. It's a really great effect. It's kind of like Solemn Warning, except not just for special summoning. But yeah, I really like this effect. I would love to run more of it if I was more confident with Necro Valley, but I'm just going to use the one of them. And then besides that, you've got all the basic kind of stuff that I use. Book of Moon, MST for obvious reasons, Ragiki for obvious reasons, Snatch, Bottomless, Compulsory, Fiendish Chain for slowing down the opponent's deck, and Free Vanity's Emptiness. Free Fiendish Chain and Free Vanity's Emptiness are becoming a favourite of mine. I'm really enjoying using 3 copies of those each. Really helps my lower tier decks kind of just slow down an opponent's deck, so really enjoying using those. I'm not going to talk about those more. And Mirror Force is Mirror Force, everyone knows what Mirror Force is. For the extra deck, I have a small toolbox of monsters here. I've used 2 copies of Dark Law and 1 copy of Anki because they're dark and they can be used with the Gravekeepers monsters. I only have 2 copies of Mars Chains, so I don't really need that many. And if I use Anki first, I can bring out another copy of Mars Chains later and then go into Dark Law, or I might just go into Dark Law. I use Acid for just in case I snatch steal a Necros monster, because I think they're mostly water, and then I might be able to use Mars Change on it. And I use DM because it's an Earth monster, and Commandant is an Earth monster as well, which is kind of strange considering all the other Gravekeepers are Earth, so I'll keep 1 copy of DN there, but I've never really summoned it before, so I might take it out if it's really inconsistent, because often I don't really put Commandant to the field, I kind of discard it. Then I've got just your basic set of rank 4 XC monsters. The only one which I want to point out here is Master Key Beetle, a really great monster because its effect allows you to protect any card that stays face up on the field, such as Necro Valley or even Vanity's Emptiness. And as long as Master Key Beetle's on the field, it cannot be those cards cannot be destroyed. Just gives you that little bit extra layer of protection. I do like to summon this quite often. It's kind of my go-to card, especially if I don't need any of the other options. So Master Key Beetle is really great for this deck here. And that's it. This is my Gravekeepers deck, Protecting My Devotion. Hopefully this has been interesting to some of you. I have already recorded an episode of me playing with it, but I'm going to be doing more videos in a moment, so I might use it again. And hopefully you guys will try out some Gravekeepers. So, thank you for watching as always. Much love, take care, and goodbye.